There's a lot of lag.
Just move slowly.
Do you want me to, is that going to help? No, yes. Am I good? Excellent. We're good. You ready? No. All right. Welcome to Own the Con. This is the 11th year that we've done this talk. We didn't do it the first year, I think, because we were too freaked out trying to actually run the con to talk about the con.
No, we did it. We didn't use the slides.
Oh, we used different slides. Right. Oh, never mind. We had a view graph. I love when people still call it view graph. I'm like, you worked at the Pentagon in the 70s, didn't you? Yes, yeah, I'd be like, yep, that's pretty much it. So we've been doing this for 11 years now, and what was a little bit different is we kind of went over some of the material we normally cover in the opening this year, but we still want to cover a fair bit of it, the same type of stuff here in Own the Con with more detail. So there's hard numbers around finances, around attendees, around submissions, and that kind of thing. And part of this is for you all here, but part of this is also for people in the future that may want to run their own events and wondering like how much does it take to really run a conference, what can I really expect from submissions, all that kind of thing, so that other people can take what we've done and do even better. So but I think since we've already covered some of this in the opening, we'll bomb through a few pieces of material here a little faster. Normally we don't take a lot of questions during this part, but if you do have questions, I think we'll entertain them as we go. So questions? Okay, none heard. So organizational structure, ShmooCon is not a nonprofit, mostly because nonprofits are a giant pain in the ass. Anyone here involved in administering a nonprofit? Is it something you enjoy doing? No, head shakes. Yeah, okay, well you may be a little different on that front anyway. You're like, yeah, I love it. You poisoned my Pocky, I think. So we run it as an LLC. It's a for-profit organization, but we don't try to make any money on it, and that works out pretty well. It keeps things simpler from a tax perspective. We don't have to have annual meetings and minutes and that kind of thing. LLC requirements to exist are pretty light. You pay the state every once in a while, you file a few forms, and it's a piece of cake. I would encourage anyone, if you're thinking about starting your own company, just go online, pay somebody $100 plus whatever filing fees, and have them do it, because it's amazingly fast. In some states, instantaneous now. Right? Some states actually have electronic filing for the LLC, and your LLC can be legal like as soon as you hit submit. I think in Maryland they still actually have to have someone physically take the piece of paper down to the State House in Baltimore because 1880. Almost everything we do is done via email and phone calls. I know a lot of other conference organizers have IRC channels and all kinds of different communication mechanisms. We still basically just use email and phone. We don't have regular, monthly stand-up meetings or anything like that. It's pretty casual, pretty informal. The rate of said phone calls and emails obviously increases dramatically as we get closer to the con, but we don't. Not a lot of pomp and circumstance around communications. We run a bunch of mailing lists that deal with each of the different sectors. So, we've got labs, we've got AV, we got sponsors, press requests, all that kind of thing. And that's all just mail aliases. It's nothing more complicated than that. When press ping us and they say, hey, how do I get to be press? We say, go to this webpage. It's got all the information. You mail it to the press requests, and we take it from there. Simple things like that. Not complicated, not a lot of web forms, nothing really to work with. So, and we will start planning this on Monday, but in a large part what we start doing on Monday is the stuff that Todd runs for us, which is gathering a lot of the feedback and kind of distilling it, and then we analyze that. But the real planning starts in earnest usually in the kind of summertime, once we've had a chance to not do this for a while and remember why we like doing it. Staff, do you want to jump in on any of this, or are you okay? Are you sure? I'm sorry, I just started talking, which is kind of my nature. Okay, kick me. Go Pack. There are about 80 volunteers, give or take. And volunteers kind of loosely defined. We have volunteers here wearing the blue shirts and staff. There's also people that come to our house to help do stuff the bags and roll the shirts. Do we have that do we talk about that in here?
We talk about what?
Bag stuffing and t-shirt rolling? Oh, we talk about the food. So, when you come to registration was fast, right? Like, that was not, yeah. That was crazy fast. I was trying to like talk to people about what to do with your badge, and I was having to like walk backwards as I was talking to people because people were walking through the line so goddamn quickly. And the reason it's fast is an awful lot of preparation goes into making registration possible. So there's two kind of big pre-conference events that we have, and we actually host out of our house each year. The first is t-shirt rolling. So, you know, it's a giant pain in the ass to dig through your laundry to find the one pair of socks or whatever you're looking for. Like, imagine a box that's full of t-shirts that all look identical, except for the little tag that has different sizes, right? We learned that lesson early, so we sort them by size, we roll them up with little pieces of paper, and we throw them in a box so that we can then sort them into those wire racks when we come down to the conference. It takes a while. It takes a few hours to go through a couple thousand shirts, sort them by size, do all the rolling. And at the same time, we'll stick people on upgrading computers and, you know, configuring the live stream stuff and getting all that going. So a little mini work party happens usually the weekend before the con. And then Wednesday before the con is when shit gets serious because leading up to that point, our house and garage is being filled with boxes, right? So the bags come on pallets, and we get a freight delivery. And sometimes the freight delivery driver doesn't want to navigate our driveway. So then the freight goes back to the warehouse, and we have to get a different freight company with a different truck. And then he shows up, and his truck's liftgate is broken, and then he has to go back. And eventually the goddamn bags show up. The house is, I mean, it's getting full. We actually have a new puppy. It's a corgi. It's about the size of a loaf of bread. And imagine life as a corgi in the Potter household in the 3 weeks leading up. When your universe is defined by everything that's a foot tall or shorter, her universe kept getting smaller every day because more boxes would show up. You're like, well, that room doesn't exist anymore. Like, you know, it's just, yeah, it was, you know, the room was done in like 8 seconds. And when I was like, hey, what's up? Oh, hey, there's nothing to do. There's no space, and it docked itself. So the Wednesday before the con, in the morning, we stage all the bags and all the swag, and everything gets stuffed into the damn bags. And then starting in the afternoon, we only sent one person to the hospital this year, which I think was, yeah, let's hear it for minimal hospital visits due to bag stuffing. Yeah, that's good. That's true. One person did go. You went to urgent care first, and they were like, we will dial 911 for you. And they did. They absolutely did dial 911 on his behalf. So we ended up, we start in the afternoon and we finished about midnight. So it took about 8 hours to stuff the swag into all the bags. And that was like 35, 40 people all standing in our house in a huge production line. So every piece of paper has to be collated and shoved into the program, and then the programs get put in a box, and then the bags have to get opened, and then all the stuff gets stuffed in by people working in an assembly line, and then the bags get put back into boxes that have to be taped up because the bags get bigger. It is heavy. It's weird, and it also feels like it's going to fall off. So I'm very like, I'm like a gimbal right now. I'm like just whoop, straight ahead. So at the end of it, you know, it's 8 hours of serious manual labor, and it gets loaded into a 26-foot box truck. And then the next morning we get up and we take all the non-bag crap that's in the house and load it in, and then we go to our storage unit and we take all the extra stuff that was in storage, like the racks and the old t-shirts and some leftover computers and power supplies, and jam that into a 26-foot truck. And I swear to God, there might have been about 4 cubic feet to spare this year. So we had a con in a box, and there was almost no room to spare. So please, God, buy the old t-shirts that are in registration. It's super important to us that we don't take those home this year. So we will have bags of crap next year. So one thing that we do is we acquire, like, you know, 50 water bottles here and 100 notepads there and a bunch of pens and stuff like that, all the ShmooCon branded stuff that we just doesn't, I mean, you can't order exactly how much you need every year. So we've started doing bags of crap where we sell little bags of crap for, what, $5 and big bags of crap for 10 or something like that. And it's all just old swag. And this year we decided we didn't quite have enough junk to do that, but next year we will. So the bags of crap will be back again next year. This doesn't have much to do with staff, but I think it's more interesting than the fact that we have different departments. So shockingly, there's different departments. What? Oh, and the Potter children. Oh, yeah, and to be clear, this is a family endeavor. My kids, our kids, they're mine when they're bad. So our kids do a lot of work to help out. They move a lot of boxes, They do not like that. And then they help with babysitting the laser. So we have this industrial laser cutter that we use to make the badges, and it sits in the garage. And there's one thing you're not supposed to do with a laser, which is like leave it unattended, because between that and the puppy, like bad things will happen, right? And so they sit out there and they play Minecraft or whatever game they're playing, and then every 45 minutes or so, beep, it's done, and they take the stuff out and they put a new sheet in, they clean it all out and vacuum it up, whatever needs to get done. About every 8 or 9 sheets, you have to take the whole thing down and clean the optics and do that. And the kids all know how to do that. And they spent 2 weekends ago, like between the two of them, probably 24 hours between 2 days just sitting in the garage. And it's not heated, so it's not pleasant out there.
Those little pieces, the little 4 little pieces you got that attach the wheels. My oldest son, Taryn, punched all 9,000 of those out.
By hand. Yay! It sucks.
And the little cards, the little schedule cards most of you are wearing around your neck, our 5-year-old punched the holes in most of those. So
yeah, he really enjoys punching holes in those little plastic cards. It was pretty amusing. So, hey, and just as a point of reference, like you have to manually punch those because a manual badge cutter to punch those holes costs like, I don't know, it was like $80. The automatic machine to do that costs like $2,000. Because I have no idea. I assume it's because you're entering the realm of like a die cut machine at that point, and so it becomes very different to do it in an automated fashion. But the badge printer itself costs like $1,400, and I'm like, okay, I'd like an automated badge cutter thing too. Like, oh, that'll be $2,000 extra. I'm like, we'll just get the manual one, and I'll train the kid to do it. And so that's what we did. So those things work out great, and so it turns out badge printers are not. I mean, it's $1,400. It's not that expensive to have one, and it takes about 40 seconds a badge to print those things. So, I mean, it's a while, but you can print them in lots of 150 at a shot, and so you just punt them through, and over the course of a couple of days, we get them done. Sir?
How much does the ink material that
we'll get to that.
So for the badge machine? So the badge machine is a die sub, so it's basically got pieces of film exactly the same size as the badge, and it's got CYMK and then a overlay coat. So it's got 5 panels per, and every side takes 5 panels. So the individual die rolls are 300 sets of panels, and since we print them double-sided, I get 150 cards per thing, assuming nothing goes wrong, and that I think it's $55 a roll for those things. So it's $55 per 150 badges plus the badges themselves, which are actually pretty damn cheap. What's interesting is the manufacturer that we have, their badge roll die film is RFID enabled because they don't want you using counterfeit die film. Neat, except it doesn't actually identify what kind of die film. It just says it was manufactured by the company. But you can specify in the driver, like, it's a different kind of die film, and it'll be like, no, it's not. I can't tell what's going on. Abort, abort, abort. I'm like, you can't figure this shit out. Like, you can put an RFID into here so that I can't, like, steal this and make my own film or something, but you can't say, oh, by the way, it's CYMK instead of just K or anyway.
Well, and didn't they contact
really random rant, but I was really pissed off. I figured out we spent all the money on the RFID, and then I still have to tell it, like, what it is, you jerks.
But didn't they contact us because some of the ink had been stolen?
Oh no, that was the labs badges and the press badges are laminate badges that like you would get for a concert or something like that. And you can get a holographic die cut and stamped on those. And it was interesting because about a year and a half ago, a company's called Access Events and Passes or something out of Las Vegas. They're super responsive.
And
like,
passes.
man, I send them like art at the last minute, and like they get that shit made and sent to us, and it's fantastic. But they sent us an advisory, a security advisory, and they said, hey, one of our holographic shipments was lost in transit. And we don't know what happened, and so we have to believe that there are potentially people out there counterfeiting our badges. So, here's the old pattern, and then here's the new pattern that we've had in reserve for when this happens, and we're going to shift. And they actually have like key management in place for their holograms, and like cut it over. I'm like, good. Can you come advise some of these companies? Like that's some good stuff, man. And it was a really well-written advisory. I mean, I'm like that's amazing, and all they do is make little, 30-cent frickin' badges. So, gold star for Access Passes in Las Vegas. So, anyway, should we keep cruising? Because we're not at all
really
talking about staff.
About the conference.
We'll be back at the Hilton next year.
And the next year.
And the next year, are we really?
Yeah.
Oh, 2 years. So next year is 17. For those that know, if you subtract 1 and divide by 4, that means it's an inauguration year. Which makes having events in D.C. kind of complicated. So we signed up for next year. We already have the dates. We'll announce them.
Same weekend.
Is it the same weekend?
Same weekend.
Okay. So we've got that locked up. It's hard. Like, I think that was one of the big things we found early on is having an event in D.C. every 4 years gets kind of complicated because the inauguration happens and it pushes everything out to the side. And then everybody kind of gets crushed up against it, and things get really tight for the few weeks around the inauguration. So we were lucky we got here next year and then the year after. Dates do float a little bit year to year, but at least we're pretty well locked up around MLK for the next couple of years. CFP stats, the acceptance rate, like I said, is pretty low. We got 222 talks coming in. We end up with quite, we're not making more space here, so you only have 30 some odd slots to fill, so the rate was pretty low. We did have, of all the submissions, again, dubious methods to try to figure out male and female submissions, but as best we can tell, we had 39 female and 263 male authors on the talks, and that was by far the largest number of female submissions we've had. You'll note it's still not anywhere near like half, but it is an improvement. And Heidi was pointing out earlier to some folks, we don't really actively solicit, to have a lot of female submissions or submissions from one demographic group or another. And so this is kind of, I think, as a baseline, like this is the state of the industry right now. I think other organizations have made a concerted effort to push hard in that space, and they have better numbers. But this is our experience right now without pushing in one direction or another. You can submit talks to more than one track. People, I think once we took out break it, people would get confused. Like, I broke this thing! And there's nothing called break it. And so they would just Christmas tree it. Like, oh, I can submit it anywhere. You're like, no, that doesn't mean, never mind, screw it. So we did see the break it tracks would really, what would have conventionally been an offensive talk in the break it track, they would get confused about where to land it. So for the chart, it's just a picture, but it's a graph. Charts and graphs. Any Letterman fans here? Letterman retired before you were born, I think. So this was our largest submission year. And it's interesting because I think other conferences have had a kind of a continual increase in talk submissions, and we had a drop for a few years. I'm not entirely sure why, but this year that all turned around, so we'll see. But it's a lot of frickin' talks.
I think I know why.
What? So how to hack the selection. So first, follow directions. I went over this at the beginning, and this is just important in your professional career in general. Like, you should understand how to read. There are so many reading comprehension fails for this conference. It is unfucking believable. Like, honestly, so we'll send out a message like, hey, vendor, welcome to ShmooCon. Here's your barcodes or whatever, and here's a bunch of information we need. Very clearly, do you need network? Do you need power? Do you need whatever? Okay, please. And before we send you your barcodes, you must send us payment because we're not going to do anything before we get payment from you. Okay? Okay. 10, 15 days later, I'm going to get yelled at by who?
I don't know.
What? Over there? Oh, feedback. Awesome.
This year, not very many.
It was, last year was like I think we went really hard line on it.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Oh, repeat the question? That's for amateurs. I like to think that you can infer the question from my answer. I like that. If he asked, it said Ford or GM. GM. Christ, what about? After Lee Iacocca left, that place went to shit. So he did. What did you ask, sir?
The question was how many people, yeah.
Oh, right. How many talks got? Okay, so so that's what he asked. So for those that are online, he asked how many talks got disqualified this year for not following directions, and it was really only like in the units. In years past, we've been kind of soft, and about 2 years ago, we took a pretty hard line and made it clear we're going to take a hard line, and people have been much better about following directions. But to get back to the previous story, before you interrupted me, we'll constantly get vendors who write back after we send them this email, a couple of emails outlining the process, and be like, I don't have my barcodes yet. Like, well, we don't have your money yet. So, and we made it pretty clear in the beginning, until we get your money, you don't get your barcodes. And then a few days later, be like, I don't see our logo on the website. Well, you haven't given us your logo yet. Like, that's a predicate for us to do anything with it. And it's interesting because I've worked in organizations that have pretty strong branding and marketing departments who get really grumpy when their vendors or other people take their logo and put it somewhere without their permission, or using a logo that's not the right logo for that form. Like, oh, you took our print logo and used it on the web. You're not allowed to do that. So we don't just go to people's websites and grab their logos and put it on our site. Like, until you send us, like, this is the logo to use, we don't put up your logo. And we have had a few vendors who are a little shocked, like, why didn't you just use our logo from the website? Well, because for every one person that thinks that's okay, there's 50 that thinks it's a really stupid idea. So we outline this very clearly, and then invariably Heidi yells and swears, and I can't understand, and I'm like, every year this happens. So follow directions, please, it's important. What? That was my imitation of you, by the way. Boo.
Do I really do that?
What? Pound to the table? No, because your desk would actually break.
Yeah,
It's one of those like things. Never mind.
Keep going.
So I guess we're gonna keep cruising. Yeah. Explain your ideas. So we don't have a complicated CFP project. How many people in here responded to a CFP?
I don't know.
Responded to
Our
a CFP?
CFP got called complicated the other day.
What?
Yeah, that's what I said.
So, I mean, have anyone ever submitted like an academic conference, like where you write a paper, right? And like it's complicated, like that's complicated. I will say submitting to an academic conference is complicated, right? Like we ask like it's for an annotated outline. That means like an outline with a couple sentences associated with each high-level bullet. That's all an annotated outline means. And we will get everything in between I'll call it bar napkin kind of outline that like, point 1, I'm going to do an intro. Point 2, I'm going to do something else. Point C, I'm going to do, like, wait, like, you didn't even use, like, automatic numbering. Like, that's impressive. To some dudes, like, here's 18 PowerPoints that I made on this topic. You're like, no, that's not the thing either. It's a middle ground, but you have to concisely explain your idea. Like, to a person who is unfamiliar with your project or your concept, your idea, please explain it. It's not hard. And that's why a few years ago the feedback was, well, it's still not clear what you want. So there's examples, right? And for those that did submit, were the examples helpful? Yeah. Okay. I mean, those are really almost exactly what we want, right? I mean, don't resubmit our examples back to us. But it's pretty close to what we want. Also, please note there's only one C in ShmooCon. For no matter what you're doing, if it's correspondence with us, if it's a request for some nature, if it's sending email and you put the C in the domain, it won't even get to us. But like people will come groveling for tickets or talking about why they're so badass and they should come to the conference and they spell the conference wrong. No. What?
Did I screw that up?
Did you screw that? Yeah, you did screw.
I totally screwed up the next slide.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about it anyway. So the best thing that I saw in... Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Kid with the skateboard's fine.
All right, that's good. The best thing I saw this year in... I'm not hot.
No.
I mean...
I'm going to go adjust levels while you stop turning so red.
I can't talk now.
Wow, she's really not even talking yet. Okay, Jen's going to go watch the levels. All right. Do you remember what you're going to say on this?
Just read the damn slide.
I read this. I didn't know what you meant because you said the best thing I saw this year. Then I was waiting for a story. I was like, oh, what was the best thing she saw this year? Now you can't even talk about it.
Apparently it wasn't me. So, like we were saying earlier, I can't even look at you guys. I'm just going to talk with my eyes closed. Talks often get submitted to multiple tracks, which is mostly fine. We can kind of mostly figure it out. But this one guy submitted his talk, and he said to us, if I'm not to the track names I have there because one of those is no longer in existence, so sorry. But he said, if I'm selected for this track, here's how I will change the talk. If I am selected for this track, I will focus on these things on my subject. And I thought, he got selected, first of all, and second of all, I just thought it was brilliant because he did the work for us. We didn't have to come back to him and say, okay, we're going to put you in this track, but here's how you're going to have to change things so it fits.
Yeah, and we have had people that were like, hey, we think this talk is better fit for this track or this track, and most of the time they're okay with it. And sometimes they get a little grumpy, and including, like, we'll ask people, like, if they got a track we think is a better one-track mind and shorten it up. Sometimes that's a little difficult thing for them to hear. Like, I don't think this is 50 minutes. I think it's 20 minutes worth of content. And so that's a conversation we tend to approach pretty delicately, but we have done that in the past as well. Sales model. So the cart, the thing that actually sells the tickets, is actually largely unchanged for the last 3 or 4 years, right? Is that correct? For the most part, yeah. I mean, there's been some few tweaks and bug fixes, but for the most part, the card itself, when you get to reg.ShmooCon.org, that's the thing that sells the tickets. That does okay. The part leading up to it this year, that's what kind of sucked. And we went over that at opening, but the long story short is we put up an intermediate site that was not on our main CMS called landing.ShmooCon.org. And landing was an M4 extra large running Nginx and basically nothing else. And it took 3,400 requests a second and didn't even break a sweat leading up to the sales. So because of the hiccup in round 1 with the CDN, we sold out in 2 minutes and 2.58 seconds, which is a fair bit longer, like 800% longer than years past. But that was almost wholly due to the CDN, because the second round we sold 900 tickets in under 9 seconds. So presumably the first round, had the CDN not gotten in the way, I think we would have done quote better. And people ask, like, oh, I think these are a bunch of, again, bots or whatever. We track IPs, we track unique addresses, we track how many email addresses purchased in one round versus both, and that kind of thing. And by name, we know a number of people that purchased in both rounds. I mean, these are people that we know, and that's Bill and Alice and Jim and whatever. So, sir.
Do you have any plans on open sourcing any of this so that other cons that might have this issue can help learn your mistakes, or at least contribute some code to you guys for potential improvements?
What are your thoughts on that matter?
I don't know yet.
Okay. It's been asked of us before, and I think that... Oh. He said, this part's kind of boring. Can we go to the next? And I said, sure. He asked about open sourcing the cart and everything. I think initially there were concerns around people learning what we were doing and trying to game it. Because, people do, we've talked about how people are trying to game it, like people burrowing past the frickin' reverse proxies and all kinds of stuff. So I think we're still trying to think through that part of it, like if there's anything that we would be worried about that would allow people to gain an advantage, especially from a bot construction perspective. So we have worked with other events to kind of, give them what we've learned in our pointers and that kind of thing, so that they can write similar systems.
Well, and other events have helped us too, to be clear.
Yeah. Well, it's tough, so the best crypto is the crypto that everybody can come and analyze, fully. But this is one of those situations, maybe there are loopholes, but at the end of the day, we have other jobs and things that we need to do, and so keeping some of this close hold makes it so we don't have to constantly plug a whole bunch of holes that people find out about and deal with it. Because honestly, beyond the server crashing, my biggest fear the day of ticket sales is that somebody figures something out and reserves 50% of the tickets.
That's not my biggest fear.
Oh, what's your biggest fear?
That we're going to forget to run ticket sales.
We're not going to forget to run. The morning I wake up and I feel like I'm going to barf and I realize I'm not pregnant, that's the day it's ticket sales. I'm like, oh, right. So, because if that happens, then what do? You have to invalidate the round, right? It was unfair. But they give it to the other half of the people, except for that one person, and then we have a smaller round the next time. How do you manage that? And that's going to be kind of a shitstorm if and when it ever happens. And so, the year that we had the flailing around, we used to just have a script that would automatically launch ticket sales at noon, right? And then when the server was getting hammered and the server processes are bouncing up and down, and we're on SSH and we're hitting keys, and 10 minutes later the keystrokes are showing up. We can't even shut the box down because the box isn't anywhere near us. And ticket sales just went live, and suddenly people are getting errors, and they're whoops, I got a ticket, and then more errors, and here's another ticket. Things aren't getting written to disk, and half an hour later we managed to shut everything down, and then we got these log files, and we're what the fuck happened? Like, seriously, like, who got a ticket? You know, people like, I got to this stage and I should have gotten a ticket, but, you know, I didn't get to here and whatever. And it was a pain in the ass to reconstruct that. I mean, it was days of work to make that happen. An interesting side note from that year, did anyone participate in that year? That was the Moose Cluster year. That was a banner experience for everybody. I wrote personally.
No.
What?
I did.
I did. You know how I know? I will tell you the story of how I know I wrote everybody personally, because we had like 500, 600 emails in the database from this flopping around of the system. And I had to write everybody, and it was kind of like a social engineering experiment. We did it, but it came from my computer, and here's how I know.
I'm not disputing that fact, but I do know for a fact we did this together.
So we wrote an email that I think was sufficiently vague that basically if you got a ticket, you would tell us you got a ticket, and if you didn't get a ticket, you would say, oh, sorry, thanks, I'll try again later. And most people on their honor seem to have done the right thing. But in order to send it en masse, I wanted to send it for my Mac, and I went to go use Automator to do it. And
so he gets credit for it because he used Automator.
Well, I'm sorry. We wrote it. Look, all I'm trying to do is tell a story about why I can't use my goddamn address book anymore. So, in Automator, in order to send an email, like you have to build. Who's used Automator? Like it's a little plug and play thing on a Mac where you're like, boop, I want to do this and then this and then this, and I want to do it 1,000 times and hit go. And so to send email, I could have like just written a goddamn shell script. I'm like, no, I'm going to use Automator. And to send a bunch of emails, you have to enter in people's addresses in your address book because you have to grab a contact from the address book. So I added all of the addresses from the database into my address book and then send all those emails. And not only that, but Mail.app pops a window up for every single one of those. So like 500 mails boop, 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 pop up on my screen, and like for the next 5 minutes, boop, 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 hit and send on all of them, right? I'm like, great, it's all done. And I forgot about it. And then I realized that I have 500 people in my address book now that I don't give a shit about. Like, and they're synced to iCloud. So whenever I get a new phone, my phone's like, wait a second, I'm getting your contact list. I'm like, son of a bitch. Like, so.
Oh, and then when you sync to the car.
Yeah, and then like the car, like, you know when you start your car and like if it has Bluetooth, it's like, I'm getting your contact list. And I'm like, great, that's awesome. Like, I cannot dial in my contact list. It's absolutely impossible. So, anyway.
I don't know what you wrote there.
Landing, just so we know, just so you get an idea of how hard the different servers get hit, landing was 3,500 requests a second at the peak. The last 10 seconds are the worst. We go from about 2,000 requests a second up to 3,500 requests a second. You know, in the couple minutes leading up to it, we saw over 500,000 requests. So I mean, that's a not screwing amount of web requests. You making a phone call?
I am making a phone call. It's all good.
Okay. And then it hits the ticks during the first 20 seconds of round one. It was about 3,500 or 3,300. So I mean, it really falls off. Like once people stop their script from like hammering on the frickin' landing, then they go over to ticks, and that process is pretty straightforward. So. I have no idea what she's doing. Tell you God's honest truth. So we've by who?
No one.
Okay. So the here's, I mean, we're about 2,000 people, right? This is what we shoot for. This is our normal amount of attendance. You know, people that don't show up. The one year that was Snowpocalypse, you know, we had a fair number of people not show up, but we still had over 80% of the conference show up in 2 feet of snow.
The fair number of people was actually mostly West Point.
It was mostly West Point. Yeah, West Point bus couldn't make it that year. So that was 47 people right off the bat that couldn't come down. So 2,037 have checked in so far? Is that what?
Actually, more than that. You have to add 15, so whatever that is.
Can anyone add 15 to 2,037? 2,052, says Paul Ryan. That's why we enjoy your financial policy so much. People on the live stream have no idea what's going on. I didn't know Paul Ryan attended ShmooCon. Hell yeah. We've got Dianne Feinstein here, too. We bring them together across the aisle at ShmooCon. We don't have either of those two people, by the way. Why do we stay the same size? You know, this is kind of the philosophy, and yeah, we talked about it. It's good for you. It's good for us. Whatever. Secondhand sales. We don't really control what people do with their tickets. You know, like I said, if we could not even know who you are when you bought the ticket, that'd be fine by us, but we can't because we have to get credit cards from you people. But we don't really control what people do with their tickets. And so people are like, well, there's got to be a lot of speculators selling stuff on eBay. And historically, every year, there's some, but there's not a lot. And honestly, there's a lot of community pressure on people to not sell their tickets for a profit. You know, at best, they say, you know, like I'll sell it for whatever people want to pay, but everything over 150, I'll just donate, right? And more often than not, the tickets that are sold on eBay have that clause. And other than that, we get a lot of tickets that we see moving at face value. You know, there doesn't seem to be a lot of spec, and certainly that's not something we've taken an active role in. But the community at large has policed that heavily. And whenever we see somebody on Twitter saying like, I'll sell my ShmooCon ticket to the highest bidder, I'm amazed. There'll be like 10 or 12 people being like, you're an asshole. I'm like, oh, God bless the internet. Like, you know, this went right to 11 on that one, so.
Well, and so the last time I checked eBay a couple days ago, I think I saw, and some of these may have been repeat listings, so if we assume that they were all, you know, unique, it was, I think, 29 total listings.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it was like it's like less than 1.5% of total tickets.
So it's a pretty small number of tickets that move across eBay as a secondary market. Now, that said, there are other secondary markets.
Do you know, I loved this one. I posted this one on Facebook. I post everything on Facebook.
So Tickets Mate's was trying to sell one for $829.
At the wrong venue.
Yeah, the wrong place. So yeah, if you want to go to the ShmooCon boxing match, we can all throw down. Was there a $200 processing fee? Oh, was it? Oh, they were paying with Bitcoin. I don't think this site is real. There's no way on earth anyone would. Anyway, all right. So to the hard numbers. It's a bunch.
So these numbers come with the 11-year caveat that these are back of the napkin math that I did, you know, an hour ago.
Yes. So roughly the funds that pulled in this year are $400,000. To give you a sense of what it takes to run this, at least on the input, that's what we have. The ticket sale number and sponsorship, I mean, this is maybe 10% bigger, 5% bigger than last year.
It's about 100 tickets, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not much from a ticket sales perspective. And the sponsorship, we turned the dial up a bit.
Turned it down.
The number of sponsors?
There's 2 less sponsors than last year.
Oh, there are 2 less sponsors than last year. So anyway, yeah, it's largely the same, right? Like we haven't changed the calculus here. And again, we're not trying to make money. We're just trying to cover our nut. So what does that mean? So the hotel space, so far we already put in $120,000 to the hotel. Once the party gets calculated, it's an expensive party. It'll maybe throw in another $20,000 or $30,000. It's about $90,000 for the swag. So between the bags and the programs, the programs were nice this year, weren't they?
Yay, Kim.
And they were, yeah, go Kim. I don't think Kim's here, but she did the layout. What?
We'll thank her again
Half hour.
later.
We'll thank her again. Yeah. The program was, I think it was cheaper than last year.
It was cheaper than last year because we have awesome printers who suggested we dial down the size by 3%.
Yep. So we could do 2 up on their paper instead of 1, and it saved us a ton of cash. So that's why it is the form factor that it is because they could cut 2 at a time. And so we use Indigo Inc. in Columbia, Maryland. You know, might as well call them out by name. They are also great at our last-minute bombs. Like, here's the program on Friday. Can you have it done by next Wednesday? And then here's all our signage on Monday. We need that by Wednesday too. They do all the signage. They do these signs, all that kind of stuff. Pretty environmentally friendly, great turnaround. Deal with my really lousy graphics art skills. I do most of the like signage and the lanyards and the balls and all that kind of stuff.
Cover.
And I did the program cover and that kind of thing. So when I'm fired from my current job, I'll be applying as a graphic designer, level 1. It's expensive, right? Like all those programs, they're not cheap. And I think we've had debate, like, do we really need programs? And at the end of the day, I think you still need something. You still need to have something physical, but it doesn't need to be anything outrageous. And we try to keep it, you know, form factor that's manageable. The badge materials and consumables, like the acrylic and the wood, all have kind of some costs associated with it. We bought a bunch of new switches this year. We bought 4 core Cisco switches and a bunch of...
Well, can I go back to the badges real quick? I mean, that number is actually pretty low for badges, and that's because we're no longer, I mean, we're doing them ourselves, so there's no labor cost.
Just our soul. Like,
There's actually a lot of labor cost, but there's no money associated with it.
Right.
Since they're your children, child labor laws don't usually apply.
They do not, and child labor laws only apply in the event of for family in the event of hazardous,
Agriculture, isn't it?
agriculture,
Yeah.
lumbering. So I grew up in a lumber company, in a lumber family.
This is where he tells you about getting paid out of the vending machine.
And I got paid out of the
That's where
goddamn
the
vending
scam
machine in
story
quarters
is.
because even when I was 14 or 15, it was considered a hazardous occupation. I couldn't work there even though I was family. And then one
So
day,
they broke the law twice.
so I worked there and I got paid under the table from the vending machine. And so I would show up at the bank once a week and just pile change on the table and say, hey, can you give me dollar bills for this? And it was a small town, so they were nice and did it. But one day I was working way in the back of the lumber yard, and a call came over the radio and said, hey, David, that's my brother, and he was working there. He's like, yeah. He's like, that guy from New York State Labor's here. He's just coming to do a quick inspection, so why don't you clean up everything down there and come up to the office? My brother's like, roger that. And he's like, go home. So he's like, go home the back way. And I'm like, you want me to walk? There's a creek. He's like, yeah, don't go past the office. So like I went out the back, through the freaking cornfield, up the road, and walked like a half mile back to my house. I show up at the house at like 2:30 in the afternoon, like covered in mud from the creek. My mom's like, what the hell? Like guy from New York State showed up. I was like, oh, okay. Like, so I briefed my sons on the same thing. If Marilyn rolls up like out the back window, the neighbors have a plan. You're their long lost offspring. You know, oh look, my son came back. Labs equipment, we did buy, our labs vendors have been great about bringing like fan out switches and stuff and core switches for years, but we know we're kind of living on their good graces and knew we had to at some point get our own stuff. So we actually made an investment this year in our own layer 2 infrastructure. It's all managed switches at the edge. We can push VLANs around, whatever. And it works, I think, pretty well. You guys had, good experience. Thumbs up from the labs folks. So glad we made that investment. Honorariums across the board.
I just left that number in there.
Credit
from
card
last year.
fees. Event insurance went up a lot, like almost 100% this year. It used to be really cheap. Now it's just kind of cheap.
Well, I think we figured out that they were making mistakes.
It must have been. I don't know. So we have $2 million of coverage on top of whatever general liability and other protection the company's got. But we tell them like Philadelphia underwrites it, and if you're looking, if you run an event, Philadelphia is pretty flexible. Like we describe what we do, and we're like, they're not going to underwrite this shit, and they do, and it's $2,000 to get $2 million of coverage. So if you're going to hurt yourself, just make sure you do $2 million or less in damage to yourself, and we'll be fine. Pay estimated taxes so that Uncle Sam doesn't come crawling all over us. So it's almost $380,000 to run the con. So it's not a cheap con to run, right? That said, I feel like we do a reasonably professional job, right? Yeah, I said with a cheese. I feel like a professional. Yeah, and I say yes, I'm certifiable. Yeah, wait, that was a line from a 1950 show there, guys. That was good. Really, I think our goal ever since Beetle started this fun little experiment years ago. He was responsible for the first ShmooCon. He mortgaged his house to pay the frickin' bill. Man, it was not screwing around. And we were like, we can put on, to call out names, something as high quality as Black Hat for 1/10 the price, right? And while this doesn't quite have the production quality of Black Hat, certainly in its current trim with all the frickin' vendor floor and everything going on, I still think for $150, it's a pretty good expenditure of your money, considering you also get a party tonight where potentially you could drink $150 in liquor. So, but please, God, don't, okay? Sales accepted. That's where your $2 million cost is your liver died and you get hooked up to a $2 million machine. It's that's the rest of your life. So, ShmooCon label inside of the dialysis machine. Like, that's your kidney, right? What's a fake liver called? Death, I guess. Yeah, transplant. I guess that's what it's called. So the wooden and acrylic badge material is a laser consumable. So we own a laser cutter now, and we basically recouped our cost on it by using it the last 2 years. Time on laser is expensive. Part of it is the consumables associated with it. So the filter, so we've got this indoor filter that you can run so there's no external venting of gases into my neighbor's yard. And the first part is a mechanical filter, so it's like an air filter on a car, except it's about a cubic foot and a half. I mean, it's about yay big. costs $500 per filter. So to help, yeah, Jesus, yeah, right, seriously, to help that thing along, actually take air conditioning filters and lay it on top, because those are like $1.50 in bulk, and those things I can just rip out and pop in really quick. So I'll torch through about 15 or 20 of those before I have to replace the big one, which actually I had to do once this year. And then underneath that is activated carbon, or activated charcoal, about the same size, 2 giant bags of that, so that you can run this thing inside. Now what's interesting is the activated charcoal needs to get changed out about every probably 1,000 hours of service, or, quote, when it starts to smell bad. I'm like, what that really means is volatile chemicals are in the air, and they're harming you, but you smell the harm. Like, it's okay. Like, it's, esters and ketones and shit, and things like there's free hydrogen molecules, and it hurts like hell, but, I guess it's time. Oh, and you don't have it in stock? I'll wait a week. Like, it's cool. We'll die slowly. Yes, sir.
Is the fire extinguisher that you have in the room laser cutter, because you obviously would have one since it's laser cutter, is it one that won't damage the optics when you use it?
Man, so we'll give Paul Ryan a gold star. He's asking if the fire extinguisher we have is designed to not damage the optics. So we have 2 fire extinguishers. The one is there's a problem fire extinguisher. The other one is like, oh my God, there's a real problem fire extinguisher. So the first one that's designed not to damage the optics is a CO2 fire extinguisher. So CO2 fire extinguishers aren't cheap, and they're way too much fun to discharge. But definitely, that's something that you think about afterwards. Like, oh shit, I got to spend another $300 on a fire extinguisher. So that's the one. Like, if something goes a little wrong, you use that to try to get the fire out and then get the material out of the laser. Then we have a normal ABC fire extinguisher that will proper screw up the optics, but will prevent the house from burning down. So we have both of those directly next to the laser, just in case things go sideways.
And we send our children in there.
And we say, yeah, kids, here's how to use it. What? Oh yeah, no, they're manageable sizes. They're strong. They're good, strong kids.
Bigger than you.
They are bigger than you. So we also spent $1,000 on gaffer's tape this year. So gaffer tape. That was, I think, 8 feet of gaffer tape. Stuff's expensive. Like, it's not screwing around. But you know what we have to put the gaffer tape down? Gaff gun! Ah! This is a little device that you load rolls of gaff tape in, and you just roll it over the top of the freaking cord, and it just lays it down flat. It is amazing, and it's a lot of fun, and much like a CO2 extinguisher, it's really expensive when you have too much fun with it, Whoop! Like, oh, that was $800 of gaff tape I just laid down. Shit.
Did you use it yet?
What, the gaff gun? No, they wouldn't let me. I have to be briefed on it. I haven't passed the briefing. We also feed the volunteers. Heidi does a great job of
Calling people to deliver food.
Yes, calling people to deliver food. So when you have 50 people at your house, you think, man, that's a lot of muffins. So we just call in barbecue or pizza or whatever. And man, there's limits. There's limits to what Costco can provide. There's money left over this year, maybe $40,000, but that I think would be pushing it. We were pretty close to the bone this year, which was nice.
This is the closest we've been in a few years, but we had some pretty high equipment costs this year.
Gonna skip contest and get to vendors.
I didn't even put anything on the damn slide.
Woo! That's why it was blank. I thought we were gonna have an argument. So I didn't. Jen thought that was really funny. Like, oh, she's actually mad at that one. So we had 45 sponsors, including the sponsors for labs. So lab sponsors show up with gear and usually an engineer to help out. So thanks to the lab sponsors.
We actually did dial down general sponsorship this year. The reason why this number is only 2 less than last year is because we gained more lab sponsors, which is a good thing, but they're different buckets anyway. So general sponsorship has been dialed back. I think I dialed it back by 5, but we picked up more lab sponsors. So.
Bronze sponsorship, I
was very, very strict with this.
Yeah, very strict. Reserved for small startups and things like that. And we've had companies that have been bronze sponsors for a while that try to come back this year as bronze. Like, you've been here for 4 years as bronze. Like, you gotta move up, because we try to keep it open for companies that are really up and coming and keep it. It's very inexpensive, right? Bronze sponsorship is very inexpensive, and you still get a table, and that's a big deal. So we don't want companies abusing that. So we've been pretty serious about it. We also have a silver and a silver no table option, because there are some companies that, unsurprisingly, just want to get tickets to the conference and put their logo up and don't really want the table. And so that's been moderately popular, but I don't think as popular as we thought it was going to be.
I sold what I offered.
Oh, well, and in fairness, we sold out, in record time, so I guess it was as popular enough.
As it needed to be.
Yeah. we had a fair number of sponsorship acceptances or requests that were denied, including one that came up like 3 days before the con. Like, are there any last-minute sponsorship opportunities? I'm like, what the hell would that even be? Like, everything's gone to print. Like, you just, yeah, like, thanks for your money. Bye. Like, you know, that's a sponsorship level, okay? But we do try to, you know, provide reasonable value for the money. I think that the sponsors do tend to get a fair bit out of this. Yeah?
Where's your radio?
Where's my radio? It's right here. You okay?
I'm good. I just got to do it.
Okay. Oh, right. So I think the sponsors, we do encourage them to do something a little bit different. This is not a trade show, and some sponsors get a little confused by that at first. Because they're like, oh, we're going to bring our 8-foot by 8-foot pop-up thing. I'm like, well, your table's 6 foot wide, and there'll be someone exactly 3 inches away from you. So, no, like, good luck with that. And some sponsors have still tried to put up their 8-foot by 8-foot thing. Looking at someone right now, he refused to make eye contact with me. But I think we have a pretty good relationship with our sponsors. And at the end of the day, I think we've cut a good middle ground to have positive engagement with them. So, but we're always open to feedback from the sponsors, and in general, we're open to feedback in any way, shape, or form. I will say we don't tend to engage on social media very much. You know, it's not something that you know, around the con, you know, the account gets monitored, and we spend a little bit of time engaging around that. But for the large part, we don't answer a lot of questions on there. The best way to get a hold of us is through email. So email feedback@shmoocon.org. We tried to have a more formal feedback thing for a while. Branson put together this awesome feedback system, and we gave everybody codes because everyone's like, oh, we need better ways to do feedback. Like, it'd be cool if I could provide feedback on talks and whatever. And Branson spent many, many, many hours making this work and upgrading it and whatever. And the number of people that submitted feedback through that system was negligible. Like, really not satisfying. Branson's super smart dude, put a lot of effort in it. It's just not, it doesn't feel good when, it doesn't work out. So I appreciate all the effort you put into it, but we've gone back to old school, like just email feedback. Todd curates it, goes through it all. And again, like, and we try to respond. It's funny because even during like the talks or the ticket sales process, like people will uncork it on us in email, and then we'll send back like in 5 minutes a response and point by point and work through it. And people are like, wow, I hadn't even thought about that. Like, I appreciate you taking the time, whatever. And 9 times out of 10, people back down or they're just happy to have conversation. So I think the one thing to take away for us from feedback, like, this is a two-way street. If you want to tell us what's good, what's bad, what doesn't work, we'll have a conversation with you and we'll try to make it better. So being told to stop and people looking grumpy at us. So do you have anything else to add? No, I guess she's done. So we're done. Thank you very much.